Well, hello there, and thank you for joining me in my little indulgence here. What I'm going to be doing is giving you a short demonstration of Microsoft Flight Simulator and the Joby S4 aircraft that has been included in the latest release of that software. So before we do that though, I'm going to introduce you to your avatar pilot today. This is Avi Torr, and he is going to be flying the Joby S4 for us today on a little trip from Kenton-on-Sea to Port Alfred. Just taking a final look around the aircraft, and he's going to get inside. And that's the displays that he sees, and any moment now he's going to pull back on the right hand stick slightly, and the aircraft is going to make a vertical takeoff. He'll then just swing us slightly to the right, advance the throttle on the left, and that is going to set us on our way to Port Alfred. So these aircraft have gathered quite a lot of interest globally, both in North America, Europe, and China. There are a number of companies that have invested heavily in this technology, not only through their own investment and capital that they have managed to get from the markets, but also from the likes of Toyota, who I believe put about $500 million investment into Joby and are heavily involved in sort of the production side of the technology that they'll be using to build these aircraft. So we're just going to cruise down the river here. I think this is the Kariga, if I'm not mistaken. We're just going to do about 60 or 70 knots here, just so that you can kind of get a feel for how things look. But the aircraft itself will do up to about 160 knots, which is around 300 kilometers an hour. So with that in mind, for the use case that I believe most of them are working on, which is airborne taxis, that is going to lead to some pretty substantial time savings for people. For example, from places like JFK in New York to downtown Manhattan, they're saying it'll take about 7 or 8 minutes in a Joby versus an hour and a half, 2 hours, or maybe even more if you take a regular taxi. The fares that they think the operators will charge also are not expected to be much more than you would pay, say, for an Uber. So they may well have a good business case here. It remains to be seen, of course, how things are developing in the next couple of years. They are just about to get into production now. I understand one of the major challenges they have to deal with is the fact that this is a completely new class of aircraft, which means the FAA in the States and the same agency in Europe really having to reinvent what exactly the criteria are for these electric vehicles. So as we're starting to buzz down the coast, I think you'll see that I think this is really where the simulator excels in terms of some of its realism. And interestingly enough, at one point, Microsoft Flight Simulator, I think they felt they had things really done best in urban areas. As it turns out, I think many of the areas actually look better and more realistic if one is somewhere out in the country. So just taking a look at this shot here, I think that's actually a really good rendition of the aircraft, the sea, the sky, the sand dunes, the coastal bush. To me, that's exactly how I would expect to see it if we were flying along the coast between Kenton and Port Alfred. Now, oops, the aircraft's not crashing, by the way, here. It's just the camera that I'm moving. I'm not that familiar with the controls of this part of the simulator yet, so this is why it was jerking up and down there. Anyway, I've spent a huge amount of time in the last little while, in particular flying around in this aircraft, because with the fact that it does vertical landing, vertical takeoff, you can fly it just about anywhere, and then when you get to where you're going, you can hop out the aircraft and go for a walk. So you saw that Avi, the pilot, he was actually outside the aircraft when we started. He could do a full walk around and check the aircraft out before he gets in. I think it's amazing, really, what they have done with the simulator itself, and it's, I think, a real bargain at about $100 Canadian, given the number of aircraft, the number of airports, and just the amount of software that they have developed. It's just, as I say, I think an amazing piece of software, very versatile, and although they did have some problems at the initial launch of this release, as Microsoft seemed to be prone to do with just about every software they've ever built, I think as it matures, it's really going to be something that's just changes the way a lot of people look at flight simulation. Okay, so I think we're just about coming to the west end of Port Alfred, and what I'm going to do when we get there, I'm going to tell Avi just to position the aircraft and just go hover for a little while, and you'll be able to take a look at the golf course. I think I have got about 12 of the names of the holes at the Royal Port Alfred course. I'm not certain on the numbering of all of them, however, because from the time that we lived in Port Alfred and during the school holidays, I played quite a lot on the course. They changed the numbering of, I think it was from hole 8 onwards, because people didn't like the idea that on the way the holes were laid out before, it wasn't a 9-hole out and a 9-hole in kind of thing. There was something like 11 holes on the first part of the course that led to the clubhouse, and then you'll play the remaining 7. And a lot of the members, I think, complained about that and said they should do something to make it a 9 and 9. So you'll see in a moment, just when we turn on the first, I think it's 7 holes. I'm pretty sure I got those names correct, and there's only one that I can't remember what it was, and I wasn't able to get from the internet. But you'll see those names come up in just a moment, and I'll just let you kind of take that in, and then we're going to move a little bit, and those names will disappear off the screen, and I'm going to bring up the other names that some of them I remembered myself, and the other ones I found from various sources on the internet. So we'll just kind of let that proceed there, and in just a moment we'll move on and just take a look at the core of the town itself, and then we'll go down and land somewhere on the beach on the east side of the river. So there underneath our right wing was the new development, the marina. So we're going to swing around a little bit there. Still got the console kind of blocking the view, sorry about that. But in just a moment we'll make sure that we get a good shot, a good look down at the marina, which of course, as I was saying, I think in the WhatsApp group, was all done after we left Port Alfred and moved back to Grahamstown. So there it is, and you'll see there the bridge going across the river. That doesn't show the arches just because of the way that Microsoft does some of the rendition of these capabilities. They do a pretty good job, but there are times when things have to be filled in by, for example, third-party developers that'll make software available for adding bridges and other features that don't readily come across from the way that Microsoft do the translation. Now you see there also where the river turns left and then to the right again as it goes inland. It's along that stretch there that I think Andrew Fraser-Jones, who won the River Mile a number of times, that's where the swim used to take place. And I remember him well winning it on a number of occasions, even when he was a junior. Okay, so our good friend Avi is now going to negotiate his way down to the beach and land the aircraft. So there we go, nose down. He'll pick up a bit of speed there, and then if you just actually click on the one position on that right hand controller, it'll level the aircraft out, slow you down, and then when you get into hover mode, you continue using that right hand controller to control your pitch and altitude. It now operates a bit more like a helicopter than a fixed wing. It's actually very easy to use, and it's essentially all just driving a fly-by-wire type of arrangement. So the computer is actually really doing all the hard work in keeping the aircraft stable. You're just kind of telling it what you want it to do. So there we go, we're coming nice and slow and easy, and as soon as we touch down, I think Avi's going to jump out, and that'll be the end of this little video. And we are about 10-20 feet off the sand there, and in just a moment we're going to be put down on the sand. So you're just going to be careful to land into the wind as best you can. And you'll see now we're just, there we go, touchdown, and the props will feather forward or upright, and we're done. Okay, so just taking a look around in the cockpit and the cabin, and there we go. Thanks, Avi. Have a great day, everybody, and if you want to just have a chat with me, you can probably just try reaching out to me on the WhatsApp. Cheers.